Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. And my wonderful guest today is Keisha Blair, the international best-selling author of Holistic Wealth, 36 Life Lessons to help you recover from disruption, find your life purpose, and achieve financial freedom. She's the founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth and host of the Holistic Wealth podcast. She's also a Harvard-trained economist and policy expert, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So welcome, Keisha, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show today.
Absolutely. It's great being here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Keisha, as I mentioned in the intro, you are a Harvard-trained economist with extensive experience in the public, private, and non-for-profit sectors. How did you end up doing what you're doing today? What were some of the key turning points in your life?
Yeah, no, so it's such a great question because I didn't ever think I would end up where I am today. I didn't think I would become an economist. I certainly didn't dream about it as a child. And so it just goes to show you how, you just embrace life with the twists and turns that come. But I remember, if I go as far back as high school, I actually really disliked economics in high school and dropped the subject. And then, in university, starting off having a love for economics and really pouring myself more and more into it. And then once I graduated from university and, with my master's degree and heading out in the work world, I was just always ending up in economist roles, and my career in it just took off. I developed a passion for it as a woman, and then when I became widowed at age 31, it became clear to me that some of the very issues that I was tackling as an economist were so dear and important for women and for women's economic empowerment. Issues like the pay gap, issues like income inequality, issues like women's entrepreneurship. That was one of my key files. And so as I lobbied and worked on behalf of women as an economist, I developed that passion for it. And once I, started writing and working for the Prime Minister on those key files and, started pouring myself more and more into it, especially with my personal experience having been widowed at such a young age, it became clear to me that all of these life experiences, were leading me to this path of holistic wealth and for really clarifying that for women and for women entrepreneurs as to what does this entail and why it's so important for us all. I mean, in entrepreneurship, it's even more important because we're finding high rates of burnout, especially among women entrepreneurs, and high rates of depression and loneliness. And, there's a mental health crisis in entrepreneurship right now around the world. And so it's become, and I've always said this about holistic wealth, that it's one of the most important concepts of our generation. It's so, so important. So those were kind of like the twists and turns and kind of the key moments, some of them in my journey. But they've really, groomed me into who I am and the issues that I am really passionate about.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now, you mentioned that your husband died at a very young age. I think he was just 34 when he died. So I can only imagine how hard that must have been for you. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through this really, really difficult experience. What's inspiring though is how you got through this dark period in your life. Because when things like this happen, you generally have two options. You can become bitter or you can become better. And it sounds to me like you chose the latter. So what gave you strength in that difficult situation? And what was the most important mindset shift that really helped you to move forward?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, it was a very difficult thing to happen. I had just given birth 8 weeks prior to my second child, so I was just healing from childbirth, just going through the motions as a brand new mom. I had a 3-year-old and now an 8-week-old. So I was also navigating new motherhood and my career. But yes, I searched for meaning throughout the whole thing, and I kept questioning why. Why is this happening? What are the lessons that the universe is trying to send to me? What am I supposed to learn through this tragedy? And I went on a sabbatical, a 1 year sabbatical. So I took 1 year. I took 1 year away from work, and I dropped everything, like literally dropped everything. I rented out my home. I cleared out my home, what was left of it, packed it in a 40-foot container, and I went on a sabbatical 1 year. And that was that healing process. That's when it started. And I often say, and if people are interested in getting copies of the book Holistic Wealth, I outline in there how healing it can be, just to pause and take a moment and think about the lessons and where you want your life to go in and the direction. And so after the sabbatical, I went back and I wrote this viral article. I wrote an article about the lessons that I had learned, and that was what was kind of the impetus for the book. And 50 million people read the article, resonated with
Wow.
people all over the globe. And, that's when an agent said, you have to write this book. You have to write Holistic Wealth. And I had learned so many lessons. One of them was that throughout tragedy, there are gifts. There are hidden gifts in grief that are waiting to be uncovered. And if we take the time to just really unpack that and to think about, those gifts, then it makes it so much better when you think about, okay, this is my life's purpose. And so I got my life's purpose and calling through that tragedy to help women on this journey. So for me, there was this overwhelming passion that came out of it to help women, to help get this message out there that we have to live more sustainably, that we have to put our physical health first, or mental health first, or emotional well-being first. And that, yes, we often measure wealth in terms of our finances and, getting that $1 million opportunity, or earning a million, or having a net worth in the billions. I don't know, but I needed, even as a trained economist, to tell women entrepreneurs, women everywhere that listen, like, we have to do this in a way that's sustainable, that maintains our well-being, our relationships, our families, and that, when it all comes down to it, our values, our core values, and what we care about should be at the forefront of what we do, and even in terms of our business and as entrepreneurs as well. So that's kind of how the mindset shift worked for me. And I talk about the holistic wealth mindset in the book a lot. And that's the holistic wealth mindset in a nutshell. It's this mindset that says, you know what? Yes, I want to be financially independent. Yes, I want to have a business that's scalable, that's growing, that's providing me an income to live. But I have to do this in a way that maintains this kind of balanced life so that I can have meaning and purpose, and my relationships aren't shattering around me. So I, of course, embrace that type of mindset in my own daily life every single day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is basically the mission for my podcast and for my business as well, to just let people know that money is not everything. It's not just about money. It's about your health. It's about your relationships. It's about the meaning, about the impact that you have with your business. So all those areas have to come together for you to be really successful in my eyes. And are there any other specific, say, tools, resources, or strategies that you can recommend to people who have experienced a tragic loss like you and who are still stuck in grief and don't know how to move on?
Yeah, absolutely. And it so depends on where you are in your grief journey, of course, and where you want your life to head. But I do coach women individually in terms of mindset and in terms of overcoming these kinds of setbacks, whatever kind of life altering setback it is. So whether it's the loss of a loved one or a divorce or anything similar. And of course, at the Institute on Holistic Wealth, too, we have so many resources available. There's a membership platform, and there's also courses like Holistic Healing that are so geared towards someone who has been through grief. I wrote the course, and that holistic healing aspect of it was what got me through my journey. So it's very helpful when we look at or healing from a physical, mental well-being perspective, and also with the perspective of moving forward and kind of what we want our life to look like. In addition, there's also another course that I also teach. It's a certification program on the Institute's website on money trauma. And I know everybody listening is like, why are we talking about money trauma? We're talking about overcoming grief. Well, I'll tell you why. When you go through grief, uh, it often has that effect that it brings some sort of financial trauma into your life. Because if you lose a spouse, for example, even if you're well set in life, even if you have a life insurance policy, even if you have $1 million business, once you go through grief and the loss of a loved one, it does cause some sort of trauma, and the trauma can spill over financially. It often does. 90% of the times it does spill over financially, even if you're financially well off. Because a lot of people don't think about money trauma in that way, but it really can. Like, financial survivor grief is a huge thing in terms of coping with the loss of a loved one, whether it's a parent, a child, a spouse, and how you feel about money, how you feel about abundance around you. It might not feel the same when you're grieving. It might feel awful to have all this wealth around you when your loved one is gone. It might feel like a betrayal that, yeah, they left you with a life insurance policy, but no, they're gone. So how do you cope with that trade-off? How do you
Right.
view that money that you got as a result of? So there's a whole complicated world of grief to unpack. And that's what I've done because of my experience. As an economist, as a widow, that's what I've tried to unpack for women out there to say, well, listen, this is probably what you're going to face, and this is probably how you're going to feel about money going forward. Let's see how we can work out those feelings. Let's see how we can work through those feelings, because oftentimes they're unanticipated, and you think, yeah, of course, the money will be there and I'll feel the same about the money. No, it's highly likely you won't feel the same about the money when you're grieving. So those are some resources there, and of course I'm always available if people want to reach out to me. But it's often so important to reach out and to have someone who's been there to walk you through. Even just that friendly air makes a difference.
Absolutely. You shouldn't be alone in that situation. And I know this is a tough question, but had someone told you, say, a year before your husband died, that you would only have one more year together, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Oh yeah, so much, so
Yes.
much. Like, I'll tell you why. In the new and expanded version of Holistic Wealth, I included some information there that wasn't in the first edition of the book. And he started dying at work. He started bleeding internally at work. And
Mm.
as I said in the book, he sat down. He had a lineup of colleagues at his door. He was a manager. supervising. He was a financial whiz. He was a whiz with figures. And he called me in the morning. This is the morning, the day of his death. He called me and he's like, I'm so busy. I have so many people lined up for me to check their work, to check their figures, but I'm feeling so overwhelmed and I'm feeling so anxious. And it was when he came home that evening. And of course, he felt the pain. But when I spoke with the doctors after he died, they said quite likely it erupted at work and it was a slow drip until it became an avalanche by the end of the day. And he stayed there and he checked every single person's work before coming home to attend to himself or before even just heading out to the emergency room. So this is why I absolutely, if we knew that this was going to happen, or if we had an inkling, we would have spent the time, not only more time together with the family, but more time, with his health and sorting out his health issues. And that's why I tell people, don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until it feels like an avalanche around you. And especially for entrepreneurs out there who especially are dealing with so many fires around them, especially in this kind of economy. Don't wait until you're in a big fire, right? To start making those important moves. Like, start living today like it was your last day on earth. And that's in chapter 1 of the book where, in chapter 1, I talk about a life well lived. And it's so amazing how when we measure success, oftentimes it's the financial indicators that we use, right, to measure success. And we forget about the other important stuff. Like, most people on their deathbeds aren't thinking about money. Most people on their deathbeds are thinking about their loved ones. They're thinking about the regrets of the dying, the top 5, not spending enough time with family, not getting to live that life authentic to who I was. I lived somebody else's life because everybody told me to climb the corporate ladder and everybody told me to be $1 million something, that I forgot who I was. But I'm appealing to everyone listening in. Let your core values guide you. Don't forget your passions and who you are and what you want to accomplish in this lifetime. So absolutely, we would have lived that last year completely different.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. And I think we all need those reminders from time to time because tomorrow is not guaranteed. And as a cancer survivor, I know what it's like when your life turns upside down from one day to the next. And you just don't know if you're going to make it to the other side. But if you do, you're likely to get busy again. And then you forget about those lessons.
Right.
And you're just right back on the hamster wheel. So we need those constant reminders of, hey, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So make sure today counts. Now, let's switch gears. For everyone who is not familiar with the term, we've mentioned it a couple of times now, but for everyone who's not familiar, can you define holistic wealth?
So holistic wealth is this all-encompassing term, and I coined the term back in 2019 with the release of the first edition of the book. And in the book, I outlined holistic wealth as a concept. Not only, does it include financial independence, which is a key core aspect of it, but also our emotional health, or physical, mental, spiritual health, as well as our relationships, life meaning and purpose. And all of these things combine to make us more resilient and make us more able to bounce back from life-altering setbacks. So all of them are interdependent and they work together in unison to make us more, able to overcome these challenges that come in our lives, from time to time.
Could you share some practical and actionable strategies that people can implement straight away to enhance their financial well-being and overall life satisfaction?
Sure. So there's some micro tips that I can offer that, everyone can use starting today if you're listening in. And it will make a huge difference in even setting you on that path towards holistic wealth. So number one is financial related, and I mentioned in the book there's a whole chapter on your personal financial identity, and it's also so important for entrepreneurs. and female entrepreneurs. So your personal financial identity is basically like your money identity, and there's a quiz available on the Institute on Holistic Wealth website at www.instituteonholisticwealth.com. It's a free quiz, and it will tell you almost immediately in a couple minutes once you take it what your personal financial identity is, because so many people transition into adulthood not having a good sense of who they are financially, what their identity is. We often assume the personal financial identity of a spouse, of a parent, of a friend, of a caregiver, or anyone else significant to us in our lives. And sometimes it's so influenced by how we grew up, previous money trauma, what we went through, the negative messaging around money. So I developed this
Mm-hmm.
quiz because women came forward to me after they read the first edition, and they're like, well, how can I find out what my personal financial identity is? And it's so important for entrepreneurs because I feel like entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, are so influenced when they're starting a business to become like somebody else or to scale so fast that they can say, look, I'm $1 million entrepreneur, that they become influenced in some, financial decisions that might not be right for them. And so embracing your personal financial identity is critical in three things: self awareness, self preservation, and self advocacy. So if you're a minimalist and you're, an entrepreneur, and I've interviewed so many entrepreneurs on the Holistic World podcast who identify as minimalists, and they've
Mm-hmm.
scaled just as well as, entrepreneurs who are risk takers. They just know that they want to do it in a very sustainable way. They want to scale at their own speed. They're not rushing to get VC funding. They're bootstrapping their business, and they still got the attention of Oprah. Like I have, like a few entrepreneurs on the Holistic Wealth podcast like that. And now they're big, and they've embraced who they are financially. They didn't have to try to copy someone else, or they didn't have to seem like, yeah, I have $1 million yacht. See, I'm successful. They didn't have to do that. And so it's so important for entrepreneurs to do this work. And so the other thing that I'm thinking about, and number two, this is non-financial, but that mission for yourself and your business. And so I would delineate your personal mission statement from your businesses and who I am and what do I want my personal mission to be. Of course, your business has a mission. Of course, it's related to yours. But I think doing that work of delineating them, and some people actually do have a money mission statement too, wrapped up in their personal mission. And it really does help you solidify who you are, your core values. And I often tell people, outline your core values as a first step, whether it's community, loyalty, I don't know what your core value is, but outline them first and then use that to guide the development of your mission statement. So what does a life well lived look like for you? And how does that translate into what you're doing right now? Does what you're doing right, does it align with your daily actions right now? And if it doesn't, where are the gaps? And how can you, set yourself up on a path where you're going in the direction that you want to? And each of us has to do that work to really self-assess, whether we're going on that right path or not.
Yeah.
There's so many different, tips and strategies that I can offer. And I mean, there's lots more in the book, obviously, but I would also say, in terms of, entrepreneurs, really look at to see if your business is heading in the direction that you want it to be. Look at your core offerings, look at everything that you're offering right now, and really scale back. Like we often think about, where can I get more revenue in? What can I launch now to get more money in? And that's fine and dandy, but when you look at the demand for your products, like is it centered on this one offering, or is it centered on these two offerings that you have that most people are kind of gravitating towards? And if that's the case, how can you make that more accessible to people? Or how can you make that more available, since that's what people are gravitating towards? So I would, for entrepreneurs listening in, and we're talking about holistic wealth here. And one thing I talk about a lot when I speak about the holistic wealth method, and this is so important for entrepreneurs, what is filling up your holistic wealth bank account on a daily basis? If there's an asset or a relationship or a service offering that is drawing and bankrupting you physically, emotionally, financially, get rid of it. I'm in the process right now of doing that with one of my assets. Get rid of it. If every single day you wake up obsessing negatively about this thing bearing you down, this asset, this service offering, this type of client, this type of service, this type of product, this type of asset, get rid of it. Because I always often tell people, focus on those things that enrich your holistic wealth bank account. And that's financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and it really aligns with where you want to be heading. Because so much of us as entrepreneurs, we think if we are dissolving something, an asset, a unit, a service, a product, we're going in the wrong direction. Oh no. I'm in the midst of doing that right now, and I cannot wait for it to be gone and for it to be done, because I know that's going to be an addition to my holistic wealth bank account when it's gone. So I'm appealing to everyone, and I talk a lot about that with, that holistic wealth mindset, and seeing where you can look at everything that you have in your holistic wealth portfolio, which is something I think all entrepreneurs need. Every entrepreneur needs a holistic wealth portfolio that outlines all of this that we're talking about and how they want their life to look like. And so I do work with entrepreneurs to develop theirs and to make it sustainable, something that they can renew, and something that makes them more resilient. So that's what I would say, in terms of some quick tips for people listening in of things that they can do right now,
Awesome.
in their life. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I totally agree. It's not about having more and more offers. It's about having the right offers that work on every level. Now, coming back to the things that we do on a daily basis to stay happy, healthy, and productive, what are some of the most important high performance habits that you have adopted over the years that help you with this whole holistic wealth concept?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I tend to be a nature lover, and I know, that the high performance habits will be different for each one of us, but I take my daily walks in nature every single day, and I started doing that when I was on my sabbatical. I mean, on sabbatical, there were longer, more elaborate, of course, there were more like hikes in the mountain. But since I can't hike in the mountain every day, I do take my nature walks, and I find that fills me up so much. That's one high performance habit, because that thinking while I'm walking helps me to resolve certain issues, that I'm grappling with, whether it's in my business or in a relationship or anything around parenting or what I need to do next. So walking helps me a lot. I also try to find time, because I'm also a spiritual person, so I often try to find time for prayer and meditation. And of course, that started when I was on sabbatical. Not that I didn't pray before then, but when I was on sabbatical, like, I get up and meditate for 3 hours in the early morning every single day. 3 hours. Yeah. Now I can't do 3 hours because I have kids to take to school. It's scaled down much more. But I try to find that time, and if I miss it in the morning, I try to do it in the evening as well. The other thing is kind of like journaling. So it can be a bullet journal. It doesn't have to be like a whole page of writing down your thoughts, but maybe just jotting down one thing that happened good today, or one success that you had, one new client, one new contact, one new anything that makes you feel like you're progressing, or that you have done something good today. And it might not have anything to do with business. It might have to do with reaching out to a friend who you haven't connected with in a long time because you've been so busy. But it feels so good to just connect with your friend again, or with that family member, or just connecting with family. Like over the summer, I had several events where I had to, be on the road and take those road trips to spend with family. And those filled me up so much leading into the fall. So whatever it is that you think will fill up your holistic wealth bank account and allow you to be able to be more efficient, allow you to be able to pour yourself into your mission and your purpose more and more meaningfully, more authentically. I think those are really those, high success habits that we all need to like zone into. If we can find 2 to 3 every day that we can implement, then I think,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, as you said, it's highly unique or highly personal for everyone. So everyone has to find the things that work for them. It's not like we have the one size fits all recipe that everyone can follow. But yeah, it's everyone has to experiment, and this is what's also fun because you get to explore and to be curious about what helps you fill your cup, and then really just find those, as you said, maybe 2 or 3 things that you can really do on a daily basis, and then just do them. Just like Nike said, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Absolutely. When you were talking about those high performance habits just now, I remembered how during COVID, my children and I wrote these small notes and we built a gratitude jar. And we did that during the height of COVID when the kids were in lockdown. We're all in lockdown and the kids were doing online learning. And we had to be grateful for little things like, the internet not popping in and out during a class, right? Because the kids were going to full meltdown mode when that happened. And we would write those little notes and put them in a jar together. And I'm just, it almost brings tears to my eyes when I think about it. We had stopped doing it, obviously, when the kids went back into school. But if we can all just remember on a daily basis, gratitude, and just remember to fill up that gratitude jar, even if it's a mental jar, that we can just put a note in every day to be grateful for something. It could be as small as the internet not popping out today when you're doing an important task. And I know now it sounds not so, disruptive, but it's just the small things in life and recognizing the small things that happen to us today that we need to be grateful for and, fill us up in a way that, it's just unexplainable and unbelievable how much it can do to our mental health and our emotional health and to our happiness. So that's one small, other tidbit that I would leave listeners with before going.
That's beautiful. I might try that with my kids. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So last but not least, where can our listeners find you online if they would like to learn more about you or connect with you?
Absolutely. So I'm at KeishaBlair.com. That's my personal website, www.KeishaBlair.com. And my email is info@KeishaBlair.com. And of course, I mentioned earlier in this episode, the Institute's website as well, where you can find a range of resources at Institute on holisticwealth.com. And of course, I'm on social media on Instagram and Twitter. It's Keisha at Keisha O'Blair. And, feel free to reach out. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the book, it's available online everywhere and in bookstores globally. So yeah, I love hearing from listeners, and on the Holistic Wealth podcast as well. You can connect there.
Fantastic. Keisha, thank you so much for sharing your story and your tips and your insights with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Take care and talk to you soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. Want more? For quick, actionable tips and insights to guided meditations and a side of biohacking, join my inner circle and get access to exclusive subscriber-only content. Again, just use the link in the show notes to join the tribe. Thank you for your support and see you on the other side. Take care and talk soon. Bye.